Yeah, I ended up doing this research project and tracking these 2,500 companies over the 5+ year span and looking at which companies were most successful. And I would define success by speed from seed round to A round and from A round to B round. Then we plotted them on the chart. Yeah. So one of the things that came up, so this is kind of I'll give you the backstory on how we got here. So I was running Founder Institute in Seattle, and I ran like 5 cohorts of that. And at one point, Christian, somebody came to me and said, "Hey, can I have your financial model?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, like I'm a very community oriented guy, and I'm like, if I'm happy to give you whatever tools I have, but I'm like, but your revenue model is a marketplace, and my revenue model is a subscription, and those are fundamentally different. Like they have some similar things, and there's some similar metrics that matter in both, right?" So it got me started on what at the time was a fairly innocent question. It was like, I wonder how many templates you would have to build to be super useful to startup founders. And so the CEO of Crunchbase was a friend, or is a friend, and this was before their API. So I went to him and said, "Hey, can you just give me a list of like every seed funded company in the last 18 months? Well, come to find out, seed equaled seed 1 to seed 10, and there were 2,654 companies. And It started this 6-year, what became a longitudinal study with no intent, mind you. It wasn't designed as like, I shall go on a quest to understand revenue models, because it's super geeky and nuanced, right? So, but the idea there was which ones are most successful, which ones are hard to do at launch, which ones only work at scale. Yeah, I ended up doing this research project and tracking these 2,500 companies over the 5+ year span and looking at which companies were most successful. And I would define success by speed from seed round to A round and from A round to B round. Then we plotted them on the chart. And then which ones failed, and what could you unpack about their failure by using a tool on the Internet Archive called the Wayback Machine. So one of the things that we did is if somebody had went out of business, we went back and looked at their last cached pages on the Wayback Machine and said, what can we kind of understand about why they failed, or what did they have in common with the other companies that failed? So the net result of that research project represents probably 20-25% of the book, which basically breaks down, here are the 14 revenue models for tech. By the way, it includes services. One of the big surprises in there were combination revenue models matured almost 4 to 5 times faster than singular revenue models. So if you do services plus subscription, or subscription plus transaction fee, right? Those business models matured way faster than a singular business model, which is totally contrary to what VCs tell you, right? So having been a VC, it's like, pick one revenue model and stick with it. That's actually not true. But it's taken one of those things, just like it's the gospel according to venture capital. So if you do services work, so I'll give an example, here in Seattle, there's a company called Smartsheet. And Smartsheet basically rebuilt an Excel platform from scratch, hosted it in the cloud, and does everything that you don't do on Excel that's calculated, like a project plan or a moving schedule, or right. And they 25% of their revenue, they're publicly traded now, is service revenue. So they have professionals, and what they found is it compressed their sales cycle. So if you're going to use my product, but you don't have anybody trained for my product, by having professional services staff that we make a good margin on, we actually compress the sales cycle, and those customers use our product faster. So having non-recurring engineering, or what's called NRE, or having services revenue, it's a great way for you to prove that the customer actually cares about your product, but you can do that in tandem with a subscription service.
So, that is fascinating. My God, that is really, really interesting. First of all, let me take a step back and say that the work that you've done is absolutely insane, to have tracked that many companies for 5 years, to be able to come down and basically create, discover these 14 different business models that now every single entrepreneur can have access to, and can actually study from other people's successes and failures with those same business models. That's insane. So that, just first of all, for the startup community, we salute you and thank you for that because it's work that we don't have to do.